Have you ever wondered why the same painful experiences keep showing up in your life? Why you attract partners who abandon you, friends who betray you, or situations that leave you feeling powerless and small? What if I told you that you're not a victim of circumstance, but rather an unconscious magnet for your own unhealed wounds? Carl Jung, the revolutionary Swiss psychiatrist who mapped the depths of human consciousness, discovered something profound about our psyche. He found that what we refuse to heal within ourselves becomes the very thing we attract from the outside world. It's as if our soul, in its desperate attempt to become whole, keeps presenting us with the same lesson until we finally learn it. Today, I'm going to reveal the 5 hidden ways you're unconsciously attracting your unhealed wounds, and more importantly, how to break these invisible patterns that have been running your life from the shadows. By the end of this journey, you'll understand why Jung said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, and you'll have the keys to transform your deepest pain into your greatest source of power. The first way you attract your unhealed wounds is through what Jung called projection. Picture this. Sarah, a successful businesswoman, finds herself constantly frustrated with colleagues who seem unreliable and careless. She changes jobs repeatedly, yet somehow always ends up working with the same type of people. What Sarah doesn't realize is that she's projecting her own disowned irresponsibility onto others. Jung discovered that projection is one of the psyche's most fundamental defense mechanisms. When we cannot accept certain qualities within ourselves, our unconscious mind literally projects them onto the world around us. It's like wearing tinted glasses and then wondering why everything looks colored. Sarah's constant attraction to unreliable people isn't coincidence. It's her psyche's attempt to show her the parts of herself she's been denying. Deep within Sarah's unconscious lies her own relationship with responsibility. Perhaps as a child, she was forced to be the responsible one when her parents weren't emotionally available. She learned to suppress her natural desire for spontaneity and freedom, creating what Jung called a complex around responsibility. Now, her psyche attracts unreliable people as a way of showing her the freedom she never allowed herself to have. The spiritual consequence of this projection is profound. As long as Sarah continues to see the problem as outside herself, she remains trapped in a cycle of frustration and victim consciousness. She gives away her power to change her circumstances because she believes the problem lies with others. Only when she begins to own her disowned parts can she stop attracting them from the outside. Jung taught us that projection always carries a gift. The very qualities we find most irritating in others are often the disowned aspects of our own personality trying to return home. When we begin to recognize our projections, we reclaim lost parts of ourselves and become more whole. The second way you attract unhealed wounds is through what Jung identified as the shadow. Your shadow is not evil or bad. It's simply the part of your personality that you learn to hide or deny in order to be accepted by others. Every family, culture, and society has certain qualities that are deemed unacceptable, and these rejected aspects of ourselves don't disappear. They go underground into the unconscious. Consider Michael, who was raised in a family where anger was strictly forbidden. Any display of frustration or rage was met with punishment and withdrawal of love. Michael learned to suppress his anger so completely that he became known as the gentle, peaceful one. But his shadow, containing all that rejected anger, began attracting aggressive people into his life. Michael finds himself repeatedly in relationships with partners who express the very anger he's suppressed. He's unconsciously drawn to people who can feel and express what he cannot. It's as if his psyche is trying to balance itself by surrounding him with the energy he's denied within himself. Jung believed that we cannot become conscious of our shadow by intellectual analysis alone. The shadow reveals itself through our strong emotional reactions to others. When someone triggers intense dislike or fascination in us, they're often carrying aspects of our own shadow. Michael's attraction to angry people is his psyche's attempt to integrate his own suppressed aggression. The spiritual consequence of an unintegrated shadow is that we become partial beings, living only half of our psychological potential. We attract people and situations that carry our disowned energy because the psyche always seeks wholeness. Until Michael learns to own and integrate his anger in healthy ways, he'll continue to attract it from the outside world. When we begin to embrace our shadow with compassion rather than judgment, something miraculous happens. The very qualities we've been running from become sources of vitality and authenticity. Michael's suppressed anger, when integrated consciously, might become righteous passion for justice or the strength to set healthy boundaries. The third way you attract unhealed wounds is through the unconscious repetition of childhood patterns. Jung understood that our earliest experiences create what he called complexes, autonomous portions of the psyche that operate independently of our conscious will. These complexes are like internal programs that run automatically, attracting circumstances that match our earliest emotional experiences. Lisa grew up with a mother who was loving one moment and cold and rejecting the next. As a child, Lisa learned to walk on eggshells, constantly trying to earn love through perfectionism and self-sacrifice. She developed what Jung would call a mother complex, an unconscious pattern of relating that now governs her adult relationships. In her romantic life, Lisa finds herself repeatedly attracted to partners who are emotionally unavailable or unpredictable in their affection. She's unconsciously recreating the familiar dynamic with her mother, hoping this time to finally earn the consistent love she craved as a child. Each relationship becomes an unconscious attempt to heal her original wound. Jung observed that we often marry our unfinished business. Lisa's attraction to emotionally unavailable partners isn't masochistic. It's her psyche's attempt to master an unresolved situation. Her unconscious believes that if she can finally get this type of person to love her consistently, she'll heal the original wound with her mother. The spiritual consequence of unconscious repetition is that we remain stuck in the past, unable to create truly new experiences. Lisa's relationships become theaters where the same drama plays out repeatedly. She experiences what Jung called the eternal return, being compelled to repeat patterns until consciousness intervenes. The path to freedom begins when Lisa recognizes the pattern. Jung taught that consciousness is the only antidote to unconscious compulsion. When Lisa begins to see how she's recreating her childhood dynamics, she can start making different choices. She can learn to recognize the familiar pull of unavailable partners and choose differently, even when it feels unfamiliar and scary. The fourth way you attract unhealed wounds is through what Jung called the anima and animus, the contrasexual aspects of the psyche. Every person carries within them both masculine and feminine psychological principles, regardless of their biological gender. When these aspects are wounded or undeveloped, they attract corresponding wounds from the outside world. Consider David, who grew up with a weak, absent father and a domineering, controlling mother. His inner masculine, what Jung called the animus in women and the masculine aspect in men, was never properly developed. He learned to be passive, to avoid conflict, and to suppress his natural assertiveness because it was consistently overwhelmed by his mother's controlling energy. In his adult relationships, David finds himself repeatedly attracted to controlling, domineering women. His undeveloped inner masculine seeks its complement in strong feminine energy, but because his own masculine is wounded, he attracts the shadow version of feminine strength, which is control and domination rather than nurturing power. David's pattern isn't conscious choice, but unconscious compensation. His psyche, seeking balance, draws him toward what appears to be strength, but is actually the wounded feminine trying to compensate for weak masculine energy. It's a dance of mutual wounding, where each person's undeveloped aspect seeks healing through the other, but instead finds its corresponding wound. Jung believed that healthy relationships require conscious development of both our masculine and feminine aspects. David's journey involves strengthening his inner masculine through developing healthy aggression, clear boundaries, and the ability to take decisive action. Only when his inner masculine becomes strong and healthy will he stop attracting its wounded opposite from the outside world. The spiritual consequence of wounded anima or animus is that we seek completion through others rather than through internal integration. David remains psychologically dependent, hoping someone else will provide what he needs to develop within himself. True healing comes when we cultivate both aspects within ourselves, creating the internal marriage that Jung saw as essential to psychological wholeness. Let me pause here for a moment to acknowledge something profound. If you're recognizing yourself in these patterns, please don't judge yourself harshly. Jung understood that these unconscious attractions aren't character flaws or signs of weakness. They're actually evidence of your psyche's incredible intelligence and drive toward healing and wholeness. Your soul knows exactly what it needs to heal, even when your conscious mind doesn't understand the pattern. The fifth and most subtle way you attract unhealed wounds is through your relationship with your own inner victim. Jung recognized that many people carry within them an inner victim, a part of the psyche that remains frozen in past trauma and helplessness. This inner victim doesn't want to heal because healing would mean taking responsibility and facing the terror of being truly powerful. Meet Jennifer, who was emotionally abused by her father throughout childhood. Part of her psyche learned that being small, helpless, and wounded was safer than being powerful and visible. Her inner victim developed a strange loyalty to suffering because it felt familiar and, in a twisted way, safe. At least when she was the victim, she knew her role and didn't have to face the responsibility that comes with true power. In her adult life, Jennifer finds herself repeatedly in situations where she's taken advantage of, overlooked, or treated poorly. She unconsciously sends energetic signals that communicate her inner victim state, and people respond accordingly. It's as if she carries an invisible sign that says, "I'm safe to mistreat because I won't fight back." Jung understood that the victim identity, while born from real trauma, can become a prison when it's maintained beyond its usefulness. Jennifer's inner victim served her as a child by helping her survive an impossible situation, but now it keeps her trapped in patterns that recreate her original wounds, because the familiar, even when painful, feels safer than the unknown territory of empowerment. The most challenging aspect of healing the inner victim is that it often masquerades as spiritual practice. Jennifer might believe she's being compassionate or Christ-like by accepting poor treatment, when actually she's avoiding the fierce love required to protect and honor herself. True spiritual power requires the integration of healthy aggression and the willingness to say no to what violates our sacred boundaries. The spiritual consequence of an unhealed inner victim is that we become energetic magnets for people who are looking for someone to victimize. We attract what Jung called power shadow individuals, who unconsciously seek to feel powerful by dominating others. Jennifer's healing journey involves developing what Jung called the warrior archetype within her psyche, learning to fight for her own dignity and worth. The path out of victim consciousness is perhaps the most challenging journey in Jungian psychology, because it requires us to give up the secret benefits of being powerless. Jennifer must face the terrifying prospect of being fully responsible for her life, knowing that she can no longer blame others for her circumstances. Now here's the revelation that changes everything. Jung discovered that we don't attract these wounded patterns randomly or as punishment. We attract them because our soul is incredibly intelligent and knows exactly what we need to become whole, Every person who triggers us, every painful situation we find ourselves in, every repetitive pattern that makes us feel crazy is actually our psyche's attempt to bring us face to face with the parts of ourselves that need integration and healing. Think of it this way. Your soul is like a master teacher who designs the perfect curriculum for your growth. It presents you with exactly the experiences you need to develop the psychological muscles you're missing. If you need to learn boundaries, you'll attract people who push your boundaries. If you need to integrate your power, you'll attract situations that challenge your powerlessness. If you need to heal your heart, you'll attract circumstances that break it open. This is why Jung said that neurosis is actually the psyche's attempt to heal itself. What we call mental illness or emotional dysfunction is often the psyche's natural healing process gone awry. We're not broken or defective. We're in the middle of an organic process of becoming whole. The key to breaking these patterns isn't to fight against them or try to avoid them, but to become conscious of them. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who we truly are. Individuation requires us to face our shadow, integrate our projections, heal our complexes, and develop all aspects of our personality. When Sarah begins to own her disowned irresponsibility, she stops attracting irresponsible people and instead finds colleagues who match her new internal balance. When Michael integrates his shadow anger, he stops attracting aggressive partners and finds relationships with people who can handle the full spectrum of human emotion. When Lisa heals her mother complex, she stops recreating childhood dynamics and opens to genuinely new forms of love. The process isn't easy or quick. Jung understood that individuation is the work of a lifetime, requiring tremendous courage and commitment. We must be willing to see ourselves clearly without the comfortable illusions we've used to protect our ego. We must face the parts of ourselves we've spent years running from and learn to love them back to wholeness. But here's what Jung promised. When we begin to consciously participate in our own healing, everything changes. Instead of being unconscious victims of our patterns, we become conscious co-creators of our experience. We stop attracting our wounds and start attracting opportunities for growth, joy, and authentic connection. The path forward requires what Jung called active imagination, the conscious dialogue with our unconscious. This might involve dream work, journaling, therapy, or simply paying attention to what triggers us and asking what it's trying to teach us. Every strong emotional reaction becomes a gateway to greater self-knowledge. Jung also emphasized the importance of what he called holding the tension of opposites. Instead of trying to get rid of uncomfortable aspects of ourselves, we learn to hold them with compassion while simultaneously developing their positive counterparts. We don't eliminate our inner victim, we love it while developing our inner warrior. We don't destroy our shadow, we embrace it while cultivating our light. Most importantly, Jung taught us that this work isn't just personal, it's collective. Every person who heals their unconscious patterns contributes to the healing of what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychological inheritance of humanity. When you stop attracting your wounds, you help break generational patterns that may have been passed down through your family line for centuries. Your willingness to face your own unconscious patterns is perhaps the greatest gift you can give to the world. It's an act of service that ripples out far beyond your individual life, contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself. As you begin this journey of conscious healing, remember Jung's words, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Your wounds aren't obstacles to this becoming, they're the very material from which your authentic self is forged. Every pattern you heal, every projection you reclaim, every shadow aspect you integrate brings you closer to the magnificent wholeness that you already are at the deepest level. The unconscious patterns that have been running your life are not your enemies, they're your greatest teachers. They've been faithfully serving your soul's deepest longing for wholeness, even when they caused pain. Now it's time to thank them for their service and consciously choose a new way of being. Jung believed that the second half of life is meant for a different purpose than the first half. While the first half is about establishing our place in the world, developing our ego, and learning to function in society, the second half is about returning home to ourselves. It's about healing the splits that occurred in childhood, integrating the aspects of ourselves we've disowned, and becoming truly authentic. This doesn't mean you have to wait until middle age to begin this work. The moment you recognize these patterns in your life, you can begin the journey back to wholeness. Every insight, every moment of conscious choice, every act of self-compassion is a step towards psychological freedom. Start by noticing what consistently irritates or attracts you in others. These strong reactions are golden threads leading back to disowned aspects of yourself. Instead of focusing on changing other people, ask yourself, what is this person showing me about myself? What quality am I rejecting in myself that I'm seeing so clearly in them? Pay attention to the repetitive patterns in your relationships, career, and life circumstances. Where do you find yourself saying, why does this always happen to me? These repetitions aren't cosmic punishment. They're your psyche's attempt to bring unhealed aspects of yourself to consciousness. Begin to develop a relationship with your dreams, your fantasies, and your imagination. Jung saw these as direct communications from the unconscious, offering guidance and insight that our rational mind might miss. Your dreams are showing you the psychological work that needs to be done. Most importantly, approach this work with tremendous compassion for yourself. Jung understood that we can't heal what we continue to judge and reject. The very patterns that have caused you pain were developed by a younger, more vulnerable part of yourself who was doing the best they could with limited resources and understanding. Your inner child who learned to be a victim was actually being incredibly intelligent, finding a way to survive in circumstances that threatened their very existence. Your shadow aspects that now cause you trouble were once qualities you had to suppress in order to be loved and accepted by your family and culture. As you begin to see these patterns with compassion rather than judgment, something miraculous happens. The energy that was locked up in maintaining unconscious patterns becomes available for conscious creation. You stop wasting psychological energy on attracting and managing the same wounds over and over again, and instead can use that energy to build the life you truly want. Jung taught that individuation is not a selfish pursuit, but the most selfless thing we can do. When we become whole and authentic, we stop projecting our unconscious patterns onto others and can finally see them clearly for who they truly are. We stop trying to use relationships to heal our wounds and instead can offer genuine love and support. This journey toward wholeness is what Jung considered the real work of being human. It's more important than career success, social status, or material achievement because it's the foundation that makes all other accomplishments meaningful. When we know who we truly are, when we've integrated our light and shadow, when we've healed our deepest wounds, everything else in life flows more naturally and authentically. The invitation before you is both simple and profound. Are you willing to stop being an unconscious magnet for your wounds and instead become a conscious creator of your experience? Are you ready to face the parts of yourself you've been running from and discover the gifts they've been trying to bring you? Your soul has been waiting your entire life for this moment of recognition. Every painful pattern, every difficult relationship, every challenging situation has been preparing you for this awakening to your own power to heal and transform. The very wounds that have caused you the most pain contain within them the seeds of your greatest gifts. Jung believed that we're all capable of this transformation because consciousness is the natural direction of psychological evolution. Your psyche wants to heal, wants to become whole, wants to express its full potential. All you have to do is stop fighting against this natural process and begin to consciously participate in it. The journey isn't about becoming perfect or eliminating all difficulties from your life. It's about developing the consciousness to meet whatever arises with presence, wisdom, and compassion. It's about transforming from someone who is at the mercy of unconscious patterns to someone who can consciously choose how to respond to life's challenges. As you take your first steps on this path of conscious healing, remember that you're not alone. Jung discovered that the process of individuation is guided by what he called the self, the organizing principle of the psyche that knows the way to wholeness. Trust that your deepest knowing will guide you toward exactly what you need to heal and grow. The unconscious patterns that have been running your life are about to be transformed by the light of your consciousness. Your wounds are about to become your wisdom. Your pain is about to become your power. And the authentic self you've been seeking outside yourself is about to be revealed as the magnificent being you've always been, waiting patiently beneath the patterns for you to come home.